everybody, good afternoon and welcome to episode 103. Yeah, 103 of Get ResponsLIVE. And if you are a new watcher, then know that we do this every week, most of the times in Dutch, but now in some sort of English. It's not really English, maybe Dutch English, but I'll do my best because we have a nice international guest today, live from Germany, and that's Imke. You ready? Hi, Imke. Welcome.
Hi. Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you here. We're gonna be talking about Power Query because that's you know a lot about that. We're gonna share Power Query tips and tricks. We have called the session, and like every week, you can just ask your questions also in between. We really like that if you do that. And so if you are already using just now Power Query or already for a longer time, yeah, feel free to ask your questions if you are stuck with something. And of course, don't forget to give a thumbs up on YouTube or LinkedIn because we're broadcasting on both. And on YouTube, you can watch back all our previous episodes also. So feel free to watch them. Hi, Mark. Nice that you're watching. Hello. And Ron is also watching. Thank you, Ron. So if you're also watching, say hello. Maybe we have some new people also watching. We'd love to hear from you. So Imke, what is it that you do on a regular day with Power BI and other things?
I do a lot actually on a regular day. I often do quite a lot with Power Query because I work as a BI consultant, as a freelancer. So actually I'm focusing on Power BI and Power BI related stuff. And quite often I still do the import using Power Query and all the transformations in there. So it's really.
And you work for multiple customers at the same time, or are you working from?
Yes. I have multiple customers.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I work fully remote, and I usually have multiple customers at a time.
Exactly.
Yes,
Oh,
because often customers who have worked they come back and want adjustments or additions. So I just make sure to always have a bit spare time to.
So you are a problem solver. If it's slow performing or something is not loading right, then they call you in a light panic.
Yes.
No, that's great. Maybe I'll give you a call also sometime in the future.
Yes, feel free.
So, Itian, great that you're also watching. And Luke from Belgium. Hey, we have a very international crowd today. Nice. And Michael, nice that you're also watching. So, Imke, you work you're working as freelance and you call yourself the BIccountant, right?
Yes.
I see it. I'm going to share your screen now because I think you shared that also. So tell me a little bit more. What do you want to share?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years ago, I think it's been more than 7 years ago, I started this blog here. It's called the BIccountant. So my background is actually accounting and finance. I've been in my first life. I've been working in several finance positions, and around 2011ish, 12, I saw what Microsoft was about to do in the self-service area. That was actually before Power BI. So this was when Power Pivot came up and Power Query in Excel. And that really sparked some ideas, I must say. And I was really enthusiastic about it. And actually then I started exploring the tools, started sharing on my blog here. And actually then started consulting.
So here you share a lot of tips also on Power BI, Power Automate. I also see. So you look broader than. Can you scroll a little bit down? What are typical the last things you shared about?
Yes. So Power Automate, forecasting with.
Oh, interesting.
Some Power Query magic. Power Query stuff. Data flows. I will come to that as well. Some nice functions. That I transfer where I replicated.
So if people want to follow you, you can go to the website. So,
exactly.
shall we move to Power Query, because you prepared some nice tips and tricks, and
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
want to review the words, because what is the first thing you would like to share for people that maybe are new to Power Query? Can you maybe start with where do you typically use it for?
Yes. So Power Query is actually a tool. It's an area that imports data either into Power BI, as you can see here. So this is a Power BI file, and this is probably, if you've worked with Power BI, you know that already, where you can see your reports. Then you have an area where you can see the tables that sit in your data model and relationship views. But they need to get in here somehow. And how data is imported into Power BI, that comes through Power Query.
Yeah.
At least what I call Power Query here, it's called transform data. So if I click on transform data, I will be directed to a different screen. And this is the Power Query area here, where we can basically import data. As you can see here, for example, to the left, this is called the product table. And if I click on the first step here, on the source step, you can then see that this is actually CSV data that comes from the internet. Here you see that is it is web contents, and here you see the URL where they came from. So here I'm importing data from.
Sorry to interrupt you, Imke, but Power Query is quite visual. You see a lot of buttons, but correct me if I'm wrong. Everything is in the back end translated to this code, which you now see appearing for every step that you do on loading, on transformations, etc. And that code this code is called M. And is it true? Because I sometimes have the feeling that, okay, the buttons, the visual part, only brings you so far in the beginning. But if you want to take next steps, maybe you have to know a little bit about this code. Is that true, or?
That's absolutely true. Yes.
Yeah.
So usually, if I would have, if I would want to replicate what I've did here, or maybe go back from where I started. So this is. Let me try to get the. I'm not sure whether I get the page now where we can basically.
Yeah, we still see your Power Query screen, Imke. So.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. You're not
sorry
on
about
the same
it.
page.
So I just wanted to show you basically how this query has been created. Let me just hang on a second.
No problem. Take your time. So if you have in the meantime questions, and already saw your remark, Ronald, I'll come back to you later. But please feel free to leave them. Yeah, and this M code, it's quite tricky code, because DAX is already. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So here I'm in GitHub. So that's basically a public space where people post their code and sometimes simply share their data. So this is basically a folder with different CSV files. And if I want to import these CSV files, I have to basically get their addresses. So if I click on this CSV file here and click on View Raw, here I get basically a URL that I can paste, that I can copy. And then I can go to new source, go to web, and paste the URL that I found on the internet. And then when I click OK, I get a preview here of the data. And I can check whether all the special characters and so on have been displayed correctly. If not, I could basically choose different encodings here, or choose a different delimiter, or whatever can go wrong with CSV files. But here everything looks fairly fine. And if I click on OK now, you see that the file is imported, and I get basically the same thing that we see here.
Right.
So just by pasting in a URL, you see that here to the right, 3 steps have been generated. And these steps are all represented by M code that you see either in the formula window, or if you go to the advanced editor, you see the whole code in one window, basically. So that's basically the beauty of the way Power Query works. You start with clicking the buttons, basically, and the program does create some stuff automatically in the background. And you will be able to walk through the steps, as we can see here if we click in the applied steps windows. And we can also basically examine the code behind it. So, for example, this is the full code. This is everything I need. So what I could do is I could copy the code here. And for example, go to Excel. Now I open Excel. And if I go to data, to the data tab in Excel, and create a new source, and this time I create just a blank query in Excel. Oops. Then, sorry, sorry about it.
It doesn't matter. So it will open, because I think a lot of people are not aware that Power Query is also in Excel. So in this way you can paste.
Exactly. And if I open the advanced editor in Excel and paste the code in here, I get exactly the same stuff like I did in Power BI. So there is really a huge overlap of Power Query in Excel and in Power BI. It's not one-to-one comparable. So Excel has a little bit less functions than Power BI, but a lot of it is fairly similar and comparable. And so this is one way to basically reuse what you've done in Power BI also in Excel, if you like. And you can also go one step further with this sharing between programs. For example, you could check multiple queries. Just check one query, hold the Shift key, and then check the last query, and then just copy all these queries. Go back to Excel.
But did you do a Control-C now, you mean?
Yes, I did a Control-C.
And did Control-C, no, it doesn't matter.
Thanks for having me. And I just click into the queries window here to the right. And if I click Control-V,
all right,
then all the queries will be pasted there at once. So
I never knew this.
This way, it's quite easy to basically create the same stuff in Excel as well that you did in Power.
And now you only loaded it, Imke. It was a simple load of the data, but also all transformations you do. Or is that maybe some of the things that then Excel wouldn't understand? That some transformations are not understood by Excel, or will it understand?
Then I would, so there are some limitations in transformations, but very little. So most of the limitations is in terms of data connectors. So you don't have access to as many external data sources then.
Okay. Clear.
So basically, so that's quite a convenient thing.
It is. And it is also creating then all these sheets already for you, apparently.
Yeah, that depends on how the load settings are set in Excel.
Oh, all right.
So
Okay.
but the default load settings usually are that you load to the data model as well as to the sheets. You can disable that, but
now that's already a great tip. If you want to use it in Excel, you can copy and paste it quite easily. I never knew that. I learned something already.
Yeah. But of course, it's not so super sexy to always copy stuff between files if you want to basically use the same transformation over and over again. And therefore, we have also a very cool alternative that is basically Power Query in the Power BI service as a central service, basically. So what we could do with that is we could again copy all our queries, and we go to the internet, open Power BI session, and there we can create something new that's called a data flow. So if I click on data flow here and then create a new data flow, I'm able to paste in these queries as well, just like I did before. But with that, then this data flows can be digested from basically everywhere, from Excel, from Power Query in Excel, from Power Query in Power BI as well. So I would only have to do the transformations once and could consume that from everywhere. So to do that, I click here on Add New Tables. And I have to create a dummy query first in order to retrieve the screen where I can paste my queries. So I just click on Next. I choose a blank query and click on Next. That will then deliver one empty query, but will then give me here the space where I can press Control V.
Oh, wow.
And paste in all my queries.
Yeah.
And then I will get prompted to decide how to authenticate against this data source. So I click on Configure Connection and choose the default settings, which is anonymous, because that's a public data source that we have here. And you see now I can see the queries. In this case, I have to do that for every query, because every query has a unique URL.
Yeah.
Just
do you use this often, Imke, the data flow solution?
Yes.
Why do you use it that often? What is the benefit?
Because not only allows you to share with other applications or different Power BI files, but also it is quite nice for performance reasons to stage your queries. I will show that later on. But sometimes Power Query is really cool in my eyes, has many benefits, but one disadvantage of Power Query is that in certain conditions it can be very slow. And one option to overcome this is to stage some costly transformations in data flows and then reference them and do the rest of the transformations. That can sometimes
because I understood that in Power Query all the processes are done after each other, sequential, and in data flows it's done in parallel at the same time. The calculations are done, and that's one of the reasons why it's much faster, right?
Yeah, cool. That's one of the reasons. So that's one way to basically share your queries with other people as well. So that's
then you can load it in Excel and in Power BI using this data flow as a source. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So that's basically something.
Shall we move to the next topic, because you have so many tricks here? I want to see as much as possible.
Yes. So and sometimes if you have lots of queries and transformations, you might run into into the need to analyze your query code and search for similarities and for typical transformations, or search for stuff that you've done but you didn't know in which query you have done it. So in order to search through the mQuery code, basically, you can do the following. And again, copy all your queries, but then open a text editor, like Visual Studio Code or simply WordPad, and now paste your queries in there. So in that code case, you can see all the query code from all queries at once, and you can spot similarities, code highlighting, and so on. You see where you have used similar commands or maybe similar data sources and so on. So that's quite also a nice trick in my eyes to help with certain...
and then you can copy, you can correct it even in the editor maybe, and then copy it back query by query, I assume, to the queries. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And another thing I'd like to demonstrate to you or show you is how to handle this M code. If you are maybe looking for help and land in one of the Power BI forums, for example. So let me share a typical case here. Oh, where was it? Looks like so here. So here we have a question where someone wants some sort of a clustered index. So as you can see here, we have two groups of data, A and B, and they have oops, where's my cursor?
I literally had this case 2 days ago when I was working on a dashboard. I'm not working that much on dashboards myself anymore, but I had exactly this question. So I should have gone to the community.powerbi.com. So that's a global community, right? A forum where you can have your...
That's the official Power BI forum that we see here. Yes, I don't know where my mouse is. Lost my mouse.
Lost your mouse. Oh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Maybe you're on the screen. You're using multiple screens.
Yeah, of course.
Take your time. There's something is happening. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, I see it again.
Sorry about that.
No problem. It's live. So that's the community. People post questions on it.
Exactly.
And,
so
nice.
you might have a similar a similar problem and say, well, that's exactly what I want. So what's the solution? So you go to the solution, and then you get this. So basically, blah blah blah, and here's the code. So if you're not too familiar with reading code, you won't have an idea what to do with it. So how to handle this? You copy the code here. You mark the code, what that sits in the code window, and copy it. And you go back to Power Query here. And you create a new blank query here, like so. And go to the advanced editor and replace everything that's there by default by what you've just copied. So and then you get an error. So go to error. Why is that? The name table 1 wasn't recognized. So our first step here refers to object that's called table 1, but I don't have it here. So this is something that has been in the that must be the source table that has basically the data that should be transformed. In my case, I have the source data here in the query that's called clustered index. So what I have to do is basically replace the reference that isn't working here from the code I've copied to the reference to my data that I am actually working with. So to do that, I'm just copying the query name and go back to my query and replace it here. So now I have a reference to my actual data, and the query now works. And the good thing is that you can basically walk through the solution step by step and try to understand what's actually happening here.
That's nice indeed.
Yeah.
So it's not only code, it is also translated into steps. Some you might recognize, maybe from things you have done in the past yourself. Oh, cool.
Exactly.
But like I said, I did have a similar question like this. I found a solution somewhere else. I copy paste and I tweaked a little bit the code. But I thought later, could I have done this with the standard buttons myself? And I think, coming back to my earlier question, it's sometimes that in the code you use things that you could never have done without knowing the code, right? Not with the buttons that are on top.
Yes, that's correct. So here, for example, that's basically a grouping exercise with some sort of some sort of commands in here. That you just need to know.
Exactly. It's not in the button. Hey, I get a nice question, and I always like it if people ask questions.
Yes.
So I think it's a very common question. And I hope I pronounce it correctly, but Azouaou says, I need the previous transaction. So you have a lot of transactions and I want to refer to a previous cell. And in Excel, that is it. I read this often, this question. In Excel, I just say is one cell above and one to the left.
Exactly.
But in Power Query, it's not Excel. How do I refer to a prior? Is there a trick, a suggestion you can give Azouaou to get going on this? So first of all, Azouaou, use the Power BI community. That's the first tip.
Yes. First, you can go to my. First, you could go to my website.
In this case, you wrote a blog about it.
Just search for previous row, for example. So you want to get the previous row, exactly. Then you would stumble by a blog post that's called "Fast and Easy Way to Reference Previous or Next Rows in Power BI or Power Query." So I click on that. I click on that article, and then of course you should read it. What you find is you get a function here. So the basic function that reference the previous row of a column looks like so. So what I can do here is I click on View Raw, will be directed to a page that allows me to easily copy it by clicking Control A, Control Z. And then you go back to Power Query and again create a new blank query and paste all the function code in there like so. And you give the query a name, maybe function previous row.
For people that don't know functions, so this is not a table. This is a piece of code that you can call with a parameter. Say, I want you to do this based on this.
Exactly.
And that's a function.
So this is now a function with two parameters. One allows you to reference the table. So in here we want to reference this table query 1. And what do we want to see? Let's say we want to see the previous date here. So in here, I can now check query 1 for the table I want to have. And my the column name is called date. And I can click on invoke. And then you see here, you get a new column that's called previous row where you get the
cool.
So, and there are, of course, different ways to it, but many ways that you find on the internet.
Did you try, Imke, because last week or 2 weeks ago they announced, they didn't really announce, but it was leaked or whatever. It's a hidden function in DAX, Offset, I believe it's called. Did you see it or not? Which I think does a similar thing, but then in DAX.
Exactly.
The IntelliSense is not even written yet, so it is a little bit
cool.
an unofficial
I haven't played around
function.
with it yet.
But I think it's a common question, so thank you for your question. Now let's move on. So getting help, we discussed a little bit. So I see sharing functions. Hey, we have again functions. So maybe we covered that now a little bit.
Exactly. So what I wanted to show you is how useful it is to use functions that you find on the internet or somewhere else. So maybe I can just show you another one. So here the table you see here has the first 3 columns is basically structured columns, months. We have some islands and categories, and then we have the problem that in our column headers we basically have 2 rows in here. You see that we have first in the first row we have the year number, and then we have for each year we have 3 columns basically.
Yeah, I see it.
So, and the way we usually wanted to see such or load such data into a tool like Power BI would be to have all these descriptive stuff basically in columns and just have one amount column. So you would try to unpivot these figures, but it's might be a bit problematic because we have 2 rows as headers. And what I could do instead is I could add a step in here and just use a function that's called table unpivot by numbers, like so. And what that table does, what that function does is, like you see here, the first argument is the table. The second argument is a number that shows the first n columns to keep. So in our case, we want to keep 3 columns. So we type in 3. And the last argument is how many rows we want to keep. In there, we want to keep 2 rows. And if I click that now, it basically does the job for me in one click.
And this is a standard function within M, within the Power Query code, or where is this function coming from?
No, it's not in there. So and you also won't find it in here in my. So unlike
where is it coming
the
from
function,
then?
unlike the function that you can see here, you won't find it in here in my. So where is it coming from exactly?
Oh, that's what I'm asking. I didn't know that it was coming, but
anyone, any takers?
Yeah, anyone ideas who's watching? Where is this hidden function then? Now, let's
that's called something that's basically something like a custom connector. Some of you might have heard of custom connectors already. So that's basically some M code you can write that allows you to access new sources that don't have native connectors, for example. And a light version of that is something like what you can see here. That's called M extensions. And this is I've written a blog post about that that you can explore and learn a bit more about it. But I just wanted to create some excitement about functionalities like this, because although these M extensions are not well known currently and are also not totally simple to use, and if you want to if I would publish this into the service, I would have to use a gateway in order to use this. So it's not the most straightforward way to share custom-made functions. But on Microsoft's roadmap, you can see that they will soon provide us with an option to create a personal query collection and function collection that will make this much more easier. So that will make this much more easier, basically like you can see here, that you basically will have these cool new functions in your standard repertoire without big hassle and programming, basically. So this is just something I would like to point out. So if you
But
find
what
that,
do they mean by that? Do they mean that it also that you do see the function somewhere, or that you have some wizards that will help you with it, or how
yeah,
how do
basically
you see it?
you can basically copy tons of cool functions that you find on the internet somewhere. If
Oh,
you check on my blog,
and then
just
you
show
save it
you.
as a library of functions that you can reuse or something.
Exactly. If
Maybe
you go to my blog
collection. Yeah,
and click
yeah,
on my GitHub here on this G,
yeah,
if you click on my GitHub page
yeah,
and click then on the so-called M repository,
yeah.
in the library, you find tons of functions that I've created over the years
Wow,
that do cool stuff
nice.
basically and
Yeah,
can help you a long way. So
yeah,
you can start exploring things like that and just add them to your repertoire to make your
nice.
Power Query
So
life a bit
these are
easier,
M
basically.
extension, you call it M extension,
Currently, yes.
and they have all these nice functions, because I would really be stressed out if I would encounter this situation indeed with the double rows and how
Yeah,
will I
yeah.
combine it in Power BI? Let's do it in the source maybe. But there are
Yes,
these functions
of
to help
course.
you
That's,
out. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm,
Nice.
mm.
Well, cool. Huh?
So just
Yeah,
something that I want to encourage and
yeah. I
just
wasn't aware that it existed
make you
also.
aware
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
yeah. No.
So then some things how to get around in Power Query. Sometimes you have fairly wide tables
Yeah,
and want to understand what's in there, and it can be quite cumbersome to scroll around and
yeah,
understand what's in there. So there are some tricks that make your life easier. So for
yeah,
example, if you click on a row here,
yeah.
you can
Oh, yeah,
see all the columns in a nice format under each other. So
yeah,
this is something that can help fairly very often, especially if the data is new to you.
yeah,
Another thing that is fairly nice is in the view area here. That's where you can basically if you click on column quality, you
yeah,
can see some indicators whether you have errors in there or empty rows.
yeah,
Oh, just and there's another thing called column distribution, where you can basically see the how often values are in there represented, and also something like a column profile. And in there you can see for each column some
yeah.
additional information, how many rows, how many
I
errors,
think a
stick
lot of
rows, and
people
so on.
forget this step always. Do you
Hmm.
recognize that in practice? Because we also
Hmm.
explain on this on trainings.
Hmm.
But in reality, I think that I don't see a lot of people using it before they start building dashboards. They just start.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
it gives you a first impression of your data indeed. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the default setting here is that you will get a count of
Yeah.
1,000.
Wow.
So, and that might be irritating some because they are quite sure that
Yeah.
they have more than 1,000 rows. But the default setting is that you only see 1,000. That's for performance reasons. But you can change that to the whole data set if you click down here
Yeah.
on this column profiling based on top 1,000 rows. Then you get an option down here where you can switch to examining the whole data set. And then you can see,
Yeah.
you will get
But
the profile on the
sometimes when
full
I do
table.
that, I don't get any results anymore. Do you also sometimes
That's
account if it's 1
if
million
it's
rows,
too
for
large.
example,
Yeah, it's,
it says I
mm,
can't calculate it, I can't show it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to
Mm,
play around whether for your data set what
exactly,
the limit is. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So this is just something that can be useful to get around. And
Yeah.
another thing that I would like to point out is the go-to column. So if you search for a certain column, something with customers or so on, if you click on Control F, which is the usual combination shortcut for searching, nothing will happen. But if you click Control G instead,
Yeah.
then you can you will see all the customs columns, and you can start searching
Nice.
for certain words or
handy. Yeah.
And you can also click on this, go to column, but
Oh,
often
interesting.
you're not in this view here,
No.
and it's often quite it's faster from here to just click Control
It's
V.
one of these buttons that I think, has it always been there? Because I've never noticed it. It was
Exactly.
there, to be honest.
Exactly. And
Yeah, it was already there
usually,
for 3 years or not? Or probably it had been there for ages.
yeah. And you can also toggle between the sort order. You can also order
Oh,
it
yeah.
in alphabetical order or in the natural order. So this is
Nice.
also
Yeah,
something.
if you have 200 columns in the table, that's handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Azouaou had another question, and that's Azouaou, that's the next topic. So I think we can close that off. That will be the. We have so many, and let's do it shortly, and maybe I'll invite you, Imke, another time also to do more tips, because I really like this. Because I see more topics on your list. But unfortunately, we can talk for hours. But let's close off with some key performance tips.
Yeah. So let's look at pivoting operations. So often, I think many of you often do pivoting stuff. So in here we have a column with our categories where we have lots of stuff. So many categories. And then we have a value field that we want to add up. So we basically want to see the sums per category and the number in here. So what we would usually do is to go and simply pivot the columns. I go to transform, pivot column. I say I want to pivot on addition, and I want the sum of this table. And then in this case, you will see it spins and spins and spins and spins, and it's basically taking forever.
Yeah.
Because it's basically a large table. So how can you speed up a pivot operation like that? What you can do instead, so this is our source table. We can group the data. So we can say, well, let's group the data before. I group on the columns that are not the amount columns. So I check these two columns and aggregate before. So I say sum amount here, say sum, and for the addition. So then that basically gives me some pre-aggregation. And if I then pivot here on sum amount, I need to just delete. You will then see that it basically is there instantly. So I just redo it. So you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I have the operations, while the native pivot operation was quite slow. This performance upside, you won't see it every time, but I can only say if the circumstances are right and if the data is up for it, you could really get some significant performance improvements there. And another performance trap is if you merge, where's my data? If you merge tables. So, for example, I have my products table here where I have product names, and I have a sales table here with lots of data where I just have the product key. And let's assume what I want to have is in the product table, I want to have an additional column with the sum of the sales. So what I would usually do is I would merge my product with a sales table on the product key, like so. that basically would return all the relevant sales rows per each product. And then what I could do is I could just check the sum of the quantity to get my sum of sales. So, and again, this will basically take a very long time.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. You see what's happening here, blah, 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 still spinning, still spinning.
Yeah.
So what makes more sense, what will speed it up considerably would be if I add a so-called key column to the table, to the columns I'm joining. So here I'm joining on the product key, and I know that on my product table, the product key is distinct. So I have just, they are unique here. So I just have one product key in here. So what I could do instead is I check this product key and click remove duplicates. This won't change the data at all. So this won't reduce the number of rows because we know it's distinct, but it will affect the operation. So you will basically get the sum here immediately. So I click on refresh preview.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. The result is here. So this is something you should definitely watch out. So because we often merge tables and so on, and wherever. And these mergers often slow down the performance. So wherever you have the advantage that you have distinct values in your tables, make sure to create a technical key column by removing duplicates, for example, so that you can benefit from this performance improvement.
But before you were adding the keys, there were multiple product codes then, or were the product codes not unique already?
They were unique already. So technically, so the number, I'm not changing anything in the rows here, but Power Query didn't know that these were unique.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it didn't
so
check it by
you're helping Power Query understand. No, these are unique values, and then apparently that does a magic. Then suddenly understands. Wow.
Exactly. So the remove duplicates operation basically adds some additional metadata in the background. That allows then
helps him understand. All right. That's a very neat trick, Imke. Because indeed merges are very frustrating oftentimes on waiting times, and sometimes even they don't run anymore, is my is my experience. So this is a very nice trick indeed. Now
so
I think,
this is something I see very often when people come to me and say, well, can you check my queries that they are so slow? And this is one of the most frequent
and then you solve it in 2 seconds.
I see.
Right?
Issues I see. Exactly. And that's where I use these where copy pasting the query code comes in handy, because what I usually do, I will copy all the queries, paste them into a text editor, and then search for nested joins and check just systematically if
then you
we
know
can
use I need to do something
keys.
there.
Exactly.
Wow. Now,
so
I'm
but there's
impressed.
a lot
I'm impressed, Imke, because you shared a lot of very useful tricks. And so check out your nice website because you have more tricks there.
Exactly. So if you go to my website, there's a dedicated area for speed performance aspects.
Cool.
So I've collected a lot of stuff that helps you to improve the performance of your queries. So I can just suggest try it out, and
maybe you now have a nice blog, but this is also I really appreciated that you also share it on video. This because I like to share these with video, of course. I don't have a blog, but so there you can search on your website. So Now, Imke, if you want, I would really appreciate
I could
to
go
see
on
maybe
forever,
next
but
year.
no.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But maybe you can come back early next year
Mhm.
or something. Because yeah, it's really also for myself eye opener that all these things can be done so much smarter and have these nice tips. So thank you very much for being my guest. Thank you also for watching and for your questions. We'll also be, of course, next week also there. And what we're aiming to do is to have an update on, we provide a lot of learnings. And we have also our own learning platform. So we want to give you a quick update with the new trainings we're going to add to the platform on Power BI and on other related topics. So feel free to join that also. Thank you, Majid. Nice that you were also watching, and Karaf also thank you. So maybe see you then, and have a nice day the rest of the day, and evening also. All right, goodbye.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you all.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.